So how can you, as a young parent, minimize adverse childhood experiences? Or better yet, how can you prevent adverse childhood experiences? You see, when we talk about adverse childhood experiences, it's usually in the context of its outcome and its impact much, much later in life. And that's probably because that's how ACEs was discovered. The experiment on ACEs was to establish the connection between exposure to adverse childhood experiences and how that can lead to different health outcomes or adverse health outcomes. And here we're talking about diseases or illnesses, both medical and mental. And so what they found is that depending on how much a child was exposed to ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, or how many adverse childhood experiences a child was exposed to, that dosage is correlated with developing cancer, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, obesity, hypertension. In mental illness, it was correlated with drug addiction, depression, and anxiety. And so, as a young parent, now that you know there's a very strong correlation, a very strong connection between exposing a child to adverse childhood experiences and development of long-term health effects, what can you do to minimize it or to prevent it? Now, when we look at ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, they're categorized into three main groups. ACEs can be abuse, neglect, or household dysfunction. So in abuse, we have physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. In neglect, we have physical neglect, emotional neglect. And then in the household dysfunction, we've got the remaining five. So you've got 10 scores in ACEs. In household dysfunction, you've got divorce, you've got caregiver with a mental illness or with a drug addiction problem. You've got a caregiver who's incarcerated or a family member who is incarcerated, and you've got a child witnessing intimate partner violence. So if a person scores 4 and above, then they're at risk of developing cancer later in life. And so it's very important for you as a parent now to tell yourself or to ask yourself, what can I do right now with my 4-year-old? What can I do right now with my 6-year-old to reduce the risk of them developing cancer as a result of ACEs? What can I do right now as a young parent to my 6-year-old to protect them or to prevent them, to reduce the risk for them developing diabetes later in life? And so we can look at examples here. And we're talking about normal day-to-day experiences, normal day-to-day events, not occasions, not grand events, day-to-day, because those are the ones that shape the way we experience the world around us. And so we can look at a very recent example. It's the beginning of the year. Kids went to school last week, others are going to school this week. But there are kids who are starting school for the first time this year. And so some children might find it very easy to transition from a familiar environment to an unfamiliar environment. They might find it very easy to adapt to an environment with new people that they don't know, that is unpredictable. Other children might not find it so easy and might experience some difficulty. And this difficulty may be a fear of not knowing the new environment, not knowing the people in the new environment, not knowing what to do, not having a plan on what is expected for them to do or to be. And so this fear is likely to be expressed by crying. A child is going to cry to tell the mom, I don't want to go to school. Or they might cling to you, they might attach themselves to you and refuse to stay in class. They might want to go with you back home. Now, how you're going to respond to their emotional need, which is fear in this case, is going to determine or is likely to determine whether or not you're going to expose ACEs or protect them from it. And here we're looking at one aspect of ACEs called emotional neglect. Remember, the child is afraid. So the emotional need is, I'm afraid of being here. Please don't leave me here alone. Now, there are two options mainly. You could decide to put your own needs first, or you could decide to put your child's needs first. And here your need would be, I need my child to be quiet so that I can go back home, or I can go back to work, I can go back to whatever it is that I need to do as quickly as possible. That's putting your own needs first. Putting your child's needs first is trying to make your child feel safe, trying to reassure them, trying to make them feel heard, that their fear is valid, but that they have to do this on their own. The important thing, the underlying message, is that This is something you have to do on your own. It's hard, yes. I'm here to give you the reassurance. I'm here to love you. I'm here to try as much as possible to make you feel safe and secure. But this is something that you have to do on your own. You have to go to school on your own every day. So I can try as much as possible to give you all the support that you need until you adapt, until you get used to it. Now, this second part, choosing your child's need, putting your child's needs first, is very difficult because it tests your patience, it tests your endurance. It's going to test, many capabilities about you being a parent to this child. And for a lot of parents, because we don't have the patience, we're likely to go with option one, which is to put our needs first. And so what we're likely to do is to dismiss the child's fear as frivolous. And then we're likely to compare our child to other children in the classroom who are not crying. And you're likely to say, how come all the other children are not crying and they're all here for the first time? And so one of the ways that the child is going to interpret that message is that for my mom to like me, for my mom to love me, I have to be like the other children that she prefers or that he prefers if it's a dad. And your child may stop crying because of the way you've responded, because of the way you've dismissed this child, and this will fall under the category of emotional neglect. They'll stop crying, not because there's no need to cry, not because the fear has gone away, not because they've overcome the fear, but because now you're instilling a new fear that if the child doesn't stop crying, you are not going to love them, you are not going to see them. You're going to start seeing other kids. And so you're putting more strain on your child instead of actually reducing the load they're already feeling overwhelmed by. And I know that children can be very difficult to manage, but like I said, the second option where you put your child's needs first. It's going to take you time, it's going to take a lot of effort, it's going to take some sacrifice. But remember, this child that you have, this 4-year-old, is helpless, defenseless. They don't know what to do. The emotions they're feeling, they're expecting you to help them regulate. They haven't learned the mechanisms to regulate their own emotions. So they're relying on you totally. And so if you respond to their needs adequately and your response to their need allows them then to adapt well to the environment, then next time they're going to have a memory that if I'm afraid, I can express my fear to my mom or to my dad, and he or she can respond to me properly, adequately. And so the next time that happens, they do it. The next time that happens to the next relationship, they do it. So you are teaching them that expressing their fear is normal, and then finding ways to manage that fear, to adequately overcome it. And so they take that into the next and next and next situation and next relationship into adulthood. And they end up having healthy adult relationships. If you do it the first way, you put your needs first, and you teach your child that they should not express their fear, they can feel fear internally, but they cannot express it, then they're going to find maladaptive ways to try and distract themselves from their fear, suppress their fear, not have it. And then the next time they're afraid, they're not going to come to you because they know if they come to you, you're going to dismiss their fear. And then the next time they have it, they'll still do the same. They're learning how to suppress their fear. And so every time they have fear, they suppress it, they never express it. They take that into the next relationship and the next relationship, and they grow with it into adulthood. And then in adulthood now, when they're experiencing fear, because they're suppressing it and they're trying different ways that are maladaptive to not feel this fear, it's likely to manifest as problems in the relationship, as dysfunction in the relationships. And so this one small event can establish a pattern of behavior in the child that can either determine how good they have relationships later in life or how bad they have relationships later in life. So as a young parent right now with your 4-year-old, with your 6-year-old, what can you do? How can you respond to your child's needs to be able to reduce or prevent adverse childhood experiences?